Good evening. My name is Josh Mesa. Today I'll be talking about illegal immigration. More specifically, I'll be talking about how illegal immigration has a positive effect on the U.S. First, I'll be talking about how illegal immigration is a huge factor in economic growth, also how illegal immigrants also pay higher taxes, and also how illegal immigrants are willing to take all sorts of jobs. First off, illegal immigrants are a substantial factor in economic growth to the U.S. Many people argue against this, such as our president, who believes illegal immigrants diminish the U.S. economy. But most economic researchers would argue against this. A major study done by the National Academics of Science, Engineering, and Medicine shows that illegal immigrants actually benefit the U.S. economy. Betty Yee, California State Controller, stated that illegal immigrants' labor is worth more than $180 billion a year to California alone. With a gross domestic product worth of $2.4 trillion, California is the largest economy in the U.S. and the sixth largest economy in the world. Not only being the largest economy in the U.S., California has the most immigrants. More than a quarter of its population is illegal. A study done in 2012 by researchers at the Cato Institute estimated that a mass deportation policy would reduce economic growth by around $250 billion a year. Not only do illegal immigrants benefit the U.S. by their labor efforts, they also benefit it by them paying higher taxes. This benefits the U.S. because it allows the government more money to support and run our country. Illegal immigrants nationwide pay an average of about 8% of their income in state and local taxes. To make this easier to understand, the top 1% of taxpayers pay an average of about 5.4%. Legal immigrants contribute significantly to state and local taxes collectively by paying an estimated of $11.74 billion a year. Illegal immigrants are also willing to do all kinds of jobs. One recent estimate by researchers at the Pew Hispanic Center puts the number of illegal aliens in the workforce of about 8 million. Not all of these conditions that these immigrants are in are favorable. Most of them work in non-favorable conditions such as heat and toxic chemicals. A Ventura farm owner stated that she exercises native-born workers and illegal immigrants to apply for her jobs. But she quotes, "It's hard work and it's not very well paid," she said. Starting pay is around $12 to $13 an hour, and most native-born workers apply, but most almost never of them stay. Immigrants take on riskier jobs due to the necessity of not being able to work different types of jobs, and most of them are found in construction, agriculture, housework, and restaurants. The occupation fatality rate for Hispanics has been the highest among all groups in the United States for 15 years. Not only do illegal immigrants work for high-risking jobs, they also aren't paid for these risks. Illegal immigrants work for less pay. The LA Garment District, which is worth about $18 billion, pays their employees based on the garments they produce. If you average all these garments that these employees produce, it averages out to about $5 to $6 an hour, which is far less than the $10.50 that each person, which is about $10.50, which is minimum wage. Illegal immigrants don't get paid more for their unfavorable conditions. In conclusion, I believe that illegal immigrants have a positive effect on the U.S. economy because illegal immigrants are substantial to factor the economic growth. Illegal immigrants pay higher taxes than most Americans, and illegal immigrants are willing to do all sorts of jobs. Thank you.
All right, Josh, you've done something that a lot of people do, and I'm not exactly sure why folks do it. I may have already mentioned it, and that is that you're putting your proposition in the form of a question. You know, you say, "I'm going to show you how illegal immigrants have a positive effect on this." I'm going, no, that's not what you want to do. It shouldn't be an informative speech. It should be a declarative sentence. So you want to say illegal immigrants have a beneficial effect on the economy, not explain to us how they have a beneficial effect on the economy. That's just a simple word like that changes the nature of what it is you're presenting, and now it sounds like you're giving us an expository speech rather than an argumentative presentation. Now, I know that there's an argument there, so you should just use the declarative sentence. But it's clear what the inference is that you're trying to make. The contents are spelled out for us pretty clearly. It's controversial. I don't think there's much dispute about that, so that's fine. The signposts in the body of the speech are okay, although I do think as you go further into the speech, they stop being declarative sentences and they mostly just become terms, and we're supposed to fill in the declaration, so you need to be more consistent about that. The data is okay. You've got two studies that you're citing on the first point and about the economic impact that immigrants have. One thing that is not being discussed is what the impact is, the costs are of immigration. And so we always have to balance out the costs versus the benefits. And you've kind of quantified what the benefits are, but do they outweigh whatever the costs are? And I think that's one of the elements that's missing from your argument here. And you could use some data that shows, for example, that their contribution to the economy is more than whatever they take out of the economy. You know, there's arguments about money being sent to other countries, people's lives being subsidized by the public because of social services, those kinds of things. And that's the stuff that I think needs to be balanced out. That's one of those reservation arguments that are going to be sitting in a lot of people's heads, and if you don't address that argument, it's going to be problematic for you. The tax issue, the same sort of thing goes on. When you mention the 8% that they pay in state and local taxes, my question is, and then you mentioned the top 1%. How is it the top 1% don't pay the same tax rate in the states and locals? That doesn't make much sense, especially if we're talking about sales tax. They might pay the same amount of, I don't get a discount based on my income level when I'm at the 7-Eleven. They charge me the same sales tax as everybody else depending upon what I'm buying. So the question is, why is this a relevant issue? You need to explain it a little bit more. I get the feeling that the top 1% thing gets thrown in here as a persuasive tool rather than an argumentative tool that shows that immigrants are in fact paying a substantial part of the resources that they utilize through taxes. And that's really the argument that you want to be making. I think the other is kind of a diversionary thing. Like I said, it's tossed in for the purpose of an emotional appeal rather than an argument that says they make a substantial contribution that covers whatever their costs happen to be. The impact on the workplace, you've got a good piece of information here as an example to show that it might be difficult to find natives workers who are willing to work at these particular jobs. Although I got to tell you, sometimes the way the world is, people are quick to say, there's a lot of stereotyping going on here. Well, here's a lot of stereotyping going on here as well. It just happens to be in a different direction, that the natives are unwilling to work on this particular basis. It's too hard for those folks to do, or they're unwilling to do that. They're a bunch of lazy people. That seems to be the inference that you're making. My guess is that the argument that people on the other side would be making is that the wages get suppressed because people are willing to take less and work longer, and as a consequence, that keeps the pay down. Whereas it would, if you were paying $20 an hour to pick apples or whatever the heck it would be, maybe some of those lazy ass Native Americans would stick around and do the job kind of thing. But because other people are willing to undercut them on the wages, they're not willing to stick. That I think is the argument from the other side, and you need to have some kind of answer to that. All right, thank you.